Hello everybody, welcome to this tutorial on how to print for your portfolio. Today, we're going to be learning how to print with the Canon 5100-2 and -3 printers. Both of these printers are also known as the Satin printers, for they hold satin paper inside of them. So to begin, after you make all of your adjustments and you like the way that your picture looks, so in this case, I'm really liking how I look, I'm going to go up to File. I'm going to scroll down and hover over the word print and do a left click on it. Now by doing so, you'll notice that this huge pop-up window appears. There are several different settings in this pop-up window we need to adjust and make sure is correct before we continue. Otherwise, we're going to end up with a bad print, whether it be a small or large print, or whether the color is really jumbled up and doesn't look correct. So the first step you want to do is make sure that the printer you select is the one that you want to go to. In this case, we're going to go to C5100-2 Satin. This tutorial will also work for C5100-3 Satin. But again, for this example, I'm just going to stick with number 2. After you select your printer, you'll notice that right below the printer drop-down menu is a button called Print Settings. Go ahead and click on that button, and again, another pop-up window is going to appear. So luckily for you, this part is pretty simple. The printer should be corresponding with the one you selected in the first step. So C5100-2 Satin is the correct one. Now if we go to our presets, we want to make sure that our presets has the C5100 identified at the beginning and that it also has the same type of media or paper type in the name. In this case, C5100 Profiled Satin is correct. And just to show you a few different options, you'll notice that here are all the different options. So make sure that when you're reading these, you select the one that corresponds with your printer. The next step, a step that a lot of students usually do a mistake on, is this one called paper size. Now when you're printing to the Canons, the paper size should always be letter 8.5 by 11. However, sometimes students will overlook this step, and instead of saying letter 8.5 by 11, it will say letter 8.5 by 11 dash oversize. If the oversize option is on, then you're going to have a print that is 17 by 14 paper width and height with your little image on it. That is the incorrect way to do it. So make sure you always select letter 8.5 by 11 when printing for your portfolios. The next step we're going to do is we're going to hover down over this layout drop-down box, and we'll end up clicking on it, and we'll scroll over the word main and do another left click. Upon doing so, the few things you want to make sure is that your media type is photo paper plus semi-gloss. Below that, you'll also have this tab that says Advanced Settings. If it's clicked on, it will be grayed. If it's not, just go ahead and do one left click to get the options below to appear. For these next 3 drop-down boxes, your print priority should be an image, your print quality should be highest at 600 dpi, and your input bit depth should be 8-bit. If this is all correct, go ahead and click back on the main drop-down box, hover over Page Setup, and left click on it. Now, there is only one thing you need to make sure in this menu. Right where it says Paper Source, if you're printing for your portfolio, you want to make sure that it always says cassette. Sometimes students will overlook this part and not realize that the paper source is selected to roll paper. Again, if it's selected to roll paper, it will print out a 17 by 14 piece of paper compared to the 8.5 by 11 size paper that you wanted for your portfolio picture. So again, make sure that the paper source is selected to cassette. When all of those settings are fixed and arranged, you can click on the Save button down below. Now, to give you a heads up, when you click on the save button for that portion, you will get a screen that pops up. This screen is known as the print queue. So basically, whatever items are inside of the printer at that time will show up on here and tell you what order they are printing out in. So maybe we don't want to see this. So in order to get out of it, just make sure you go to the top left of the box where the little X is and do a left click on it. This will make the print queue go away, and it will take you back to your Photoshop print settings by just doing one more left click on the Photoshop print settings box. The next thing we want to make sure is right below the print settings button, there is a menu for layout. The first option is for photos that are in a portrait situation or a portrait orientation, so to say. The second one is for photos that are in a landscape orientation. So since the one that I'm working on right now is a portrait, I'm going to stick with the up and down selection. If I selected my landscape, you can tell that it looks extremely strange as it cuts off a lot of the photo. So again, portrait orientation is up and down, and landscape orientation is left and right. After selecting the right orientation, you will go down to your color management. The color handling option here should always say Photoshop manages colors. So always make sure that it says Photoshop manages colors, because if it doesn't, it won't let you select a printer profile. Now the printer profile is the scariest part of the printing process. And here's why. When you do a left click on it, you have what seems to be thousands of options to choose from. So when selecting your printer profile, you need to make sure you selected the right one. If not, your picture will probably come out in some strange color or it won't look correct. So for the Satin one, it is specifically C5100 RR up Satin H plus NCI1MP.ICC. So make sure you have that selected. Otherwise, you're going to be extremely upset with how your photo turns out. The next step is to hover down to Rendering Intent. You want to make sure that this drop-down menu says Relative Color Metric, which in this case it does. Sometimes though, when you look at the print settings, it will say Perceptual or Saturation. For the Canon printers, again, make sure that it says Relative Color Metric. And right below the Rendering Intent menu is a little checkbox called Black Point Compensation. You want to make sure that this is checked. In this case, we already have it checked, so we are good to go. The next thing we're going to do is make sure that we go to the Position and Size menu. So we're going to left click on this arrow and it'll drop the menu down for us. Now you'll notice that in here, my scaled print size says that my height is 12 inches and my width is 8 inches. Since we are printing to an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, this is going to be too big for the whole image to fit. So the rule of thumb is whenever you're printing a portfolio size picture, you always want to make the bigger dimension 9 inches. So in this case, I'm going to click and drag over my height value and change it to the number 9. And by doing so, you'll notice to the right where my width is will automatically change to be proportional. So here we go. I'm going to hit the 9 button and voila. Now we have the perfect size print and the perfect size image all together for a portfolio picture. Now for most of you, this is the time where you would end up clicking the print button and be on your way to collecting your image. This last step that I'm going to show is for some of the professors and students that use the border option. So below you'll notice that there is a functions menu, and there is a button called Border. Go ahead and click on the Border button, and you should get a little menu that pops up. In this menu, all you want to do is make sure that you change the width to the number 1, and make sure that the drop-down box here is selected to points. By doing this and clicking OK, when your print comes out of the printer itself, it will have a thin, nice little border all the way around the image. I know a lot of 101 professors do this, so this is mainly for you 101 students. And for the rest of the students, it's just a refresher to remember how to print correctly for any of the other classes that you are taking currently here in the Visual Communications program. I'd like to thank you all again for tuning in, and I can't wait until we talk again.